Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing on this fine Tuesday morning? Good morning, John. Hold on, let me move this window. There we go. There we go. Good morning, Sterling. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, PMG. God bless too. Thank you. Options 22, good morning. Jacob, good morning. Martinez, good morning. Royal Palms, good morning. David Atkins, good morning. Good morning to people in the background. Let's see. Yes, there are lots of people in the background, not in the chat. So thank you for tuning in. Hope everyone is doing well. Hello, Charles. How are you? How are you? So I really appreciate everyone, their continued support. Let's get right to it. Well, we're waiting for more people to come in. We got Redbook coming out. Nice bounce in Redbook 7.4. So spending still holding. We got Jefferson and Hawker speaking today, Cash Carey and Kugler. So we got lots of Fed speak, week of Fed speak. What do you mean someone needs to change the password to Trump's Truth account? Thanks for putting in the earnings, Sterling. We did have a few today. We did have a few this morning. What else we have coming up today? We have Richmond Fed, and that's really it. It's going to be Fed speak. Fed speak and what continues with, it's been all quiet on the tariff front. With all these people clamoring to make deals, do we have a deal yet? Is there a deal yet? I don't see one yet, but maybe I've missed it. Maybe it'll be announced today. Good morning, Anissa. Hey, Christoph, good day. Balaji, good morning to you. Good morning, Heinrich. It's always important to get good mornings in to make everybody's day. Let's just celebrate it being a good morning. All right. Oh, thanks for putting the earnings. We'll get to them in a second. Sterling, the map today, Verizon, which did announce, is down 5.4%, and the other carriers down in unison. NVIDIA, which triggered the double, is almost hit the second target. I'm actually adjusting it to the conservative targets because we couldn't do that before because we didn't know if the top was in place. Other than that, we're getting a bounce across the board after a very large down day yesterday. You had GE Aerospace reporting this morning, and it is up. I think Sterling had put some of these in here. Hold on. There we got GE Aerospace, which was a beat. Raytheon, which was a beat. Lockheed Martin was a beat. 3M was a beat. There we go. And then we got some, there's Halliburton was a misbeat. What else? Thank you, Sterling. So, not surprising to see a bounce today after yesterday's rather big sell-off. Today, every sector, we'll just refresh this real quick, but every sector is green. Everything's green across the board. Fed Watch tool still has the pause in May and then 4 cuts priced in. Fear and greed, we're still in extreme fear, and 3186 for the Schiller PE. Wonder, this is a nice little double top pattern. Wonder what happens if that triggers. Wonder if that will play out all the way down. We'll have to see. Again, Sterling putting in the earnings this morning. After the close, you got Tesla. That's the big one, followed by SAP. Enphase isn't really much of a thing anymore. Capital One. But that's where we stand right there. And then tomorrow morning, we got Boeing, AT&T. So, all right, let's get right to it. So coming down, just dipping below that 50% harmonic, we got lots of selling pressure yesterday with the VIX going up, and so my target, as I said, was at 5180. We dipping below it and coming back up on the shorter term basis. On any continued bounces, prior major support areas now resistance 5271 area. 5270, 5271 with the top of the 4-hour rotation zone. We still have not invalidated the big capitulation double bottom. Okay, that still needs a daily close below 5,093.25. Other than that, though, this has to, before I start getting, besides any micro bounce plays, before I start getting short-term, hey, did we just get down between the 50 and the 62.5, which you know is a key support zone. We tested it once. We don't have a more substantial bottoming pattern. We just have a little reversal pattern. So either we have to form a more substantial bottoming pattern down here and then trigger that, or it has to build a base back above 52.71 for me again to get short-term bullish. Because now we've come back down to the key target area. Now, if this rolls over, not necessarily today, but then takes out yesterday's lows and follows through with the close below 50.93, then the pattern will be over for the double after only hitting the first target, and then I will watch for a retest. Now, if we did get that, I'd be watching for a retest that potentially holds the 200 area because that could be a bigger potential double on a weekly. However, if they lose that 200, that would be very bad. Not saying that's going to happen. That's just looking out ahead. What is in the realm of possibility? Now, above 52.71, the next key area on a continued rally, let's say something amazing comes out with a trade or tariff announcements. 53.57, so 53.50 area is the next key target that has got to sustain a base above. That is the next key area. So those are the two on any rally. If we start getting momentum bars or something else, I'm watching for it to hold that 52.70 area. Then my next target is 53.50 area. So NASDAQ also coming back down between the 50 and the 62.5. Not closing below the 62.5. The key area it has to regain is about 18,275. It has to regain this breakdown level. Or it has to roll over and make a more substantial pattern without closing below 17,568.75. If it were to get through that, if it were to get through this 18,275 and then follow through, it's really got to continue back above 18.3 also, but I'm watching 18,275 as my initial area and then see how it reacts at 18.3. The next key target for me is 18.6. So now the Dow did close below the 62.5. Again, we don't have as many active traders in the Dow, but the Dow did invalidate after only hitting the first target, which is why that's definitely a stop raise target. The Dow, the double is over. The Dow, even though we're bouncing today, the double is over. The major area I'm watching the Dow now, since it did invalidate the double on any continued bounce, I'm watching the daily rotation zone, and especially right around 39,300 on any continued rally. But the double pattern is over, and by the way, this didn't get down to the 75 level, so there's no bigger potential double pattern on the weekly. It'd have to get below the 75 harmonic yet. But this week is not over. So keeping an eye on that right there. Or if we roll over, I'm watching, again, especially if we break yesterday's lows for that 75% harmonic. The Russell. Still, yes, we sold off, but still holding key support yesterday. So we have to continue down below this 1841 area to really start breaking that, or to start breaking out in the short term has to get above 1892. Otherwise, it's caught in no man's land. The VIX started running yesterday, closer. What was the high yesterday? 35.75, and then pulling off, and now back in, it's sort of building a higher base. Again, right now with this minor VIX pullback, this is just buying a lot of stuff that was beat up. For it to really sustain something besides those levels I listed earlier, has to get back below 30. The DAX, nothing has changed. We've tapped the other side of the rotation zone, rotated back down, well, gap down right now, but still not. And remember, this one was horribly sloppy, but still watching that first key target, 21,830 area. Nothing has changed with that either. The notes, back still in consolidation. Let's just take a look at the yield. I think people relate to that. Yesterday, closing back above a little key resistance level, watching to see how that holds today. Other than that, there is no major pattern. By the way, this little potential double we had has by far extended too far to the right. So even if we're now to close below this key little low here, back from the 9th, it would not trigger a double. It's extended too far. So it's just into a slightly higher range of consolidation. So if before the consolidation was here, now I'm watching closer to the consolidation shifting to a slightly higher area. But is there any fantastic setups there? Not yet. Not from a longer term perspective. There's only short term setups there. Dollar index, keeping an eye on this. This is not a major bottoming pattern, but the dollar index is brutally oversold. We're getting some divergences on a daily basis. And did we officially trigger this last hour? 98,175. The close was 98,176. So yes, technically officially triggered. This is a minor pattern. So this doesn't mean that there's going to be a huge bounce. I'm going to watch how this one unfolds because it is still against the rotation zone. So the key target I'm paying attention to on a continued push higher is 98.45 area. Now, these short-term can turn into longer-term, but there is not a longer-term pattern just yet. And look how extended we are to the downside from even the daily rotation zone, which we have not reconnected with since we had the breakdown level on Tuesday, April 10th. Good morning, Harold. I'll take a look at those in a second, Sterling. Let me just get through some stuff here. Crude, this is not technically a double top. We have kissed the trend line goodbye. I'd already talked about this 4-hour lower probability inverse head and shoulders yesterday. This is technically not a double top, in case you were wondering. It missed it. We need 63.58. The high here was 63.56, so did not technically make it in double top territory. So that cannot be traded as such. Even though it was just 2 cents, them's the rules. Them's the rules. So, keeping an eye on this with key support coming back about 61.85. Other than that, there's nothing. We're still against the daily rotation zone, but I'm watching this to turn into a more substantial key support area a little lower. By the way, gold. Speaking of gold, there's Coco. They are buying. Who's they? Earth will get destroyed by gold because Earth could get destroyed by aliens? Okay. I like it, Coco. Yeah, we've gone through the short-term harmonics, not yet to, but this is getting this. We're starting to get DeMark weekly setups potentially. So we might be getting into, we don't have just on stuff I put on this channel all the time, but I am watching. We are getting towards weekly DeMark potential sell setups. They're not triggered yet, but we are getting there. So I'm watching to see if we're going to also form another chart pattern longer term top. But gold pinned to the top in cycles, very overbought, very extended, with the dollar extended to the downside. That does not mean you just dump all your gold if you're a long-term holding. There'll be plenty of time. But in the short term, definitely would know where my trailing stop is. Silver not doing crap all. Copper, though, yesterday hitting the second target on the double and continuing higher. Again, we're now in the major rollover zone, so I'm watching for, with getting overbought, a potential top in here. Don't know if we're going to hit that final target. There's a lot of key resistance. There's a little micro gap still left in here that was filled. So we're up against some key resistance on copper right now. Just checking. I did not look at this. No potential double. No potential double. Now, yen also getting very overextended to the downside. Yes, there is a massive double top pattern here. Would not be shorting it even if it triggered right here because I'll wait for a bounce. Look at how oversold it is on a weekly basis with size getting the bottom and how overextended it is from the rotation zone. So we could definitely see a shift in the short term in currencies. But this is a major line in the sand for the yen. Major line in the sand. You see all the support in this area that it has been in the past. So I'm watching for some kind of bottoming pattern in here. Nothing yet, though. Euro, no key top coming off a minor harmonic, but just we're going to watch how it responds back if it pulls back to this 114 area. 114 is key support. There's just not a significant topping pattern just yet. Looking for that. The spiders, also same analysis as with the S&P futures, coming back between the 50 and 62.5. The double's only over if we close below 506. Right now, watching, we're up, gap up. So if we do roll down, 513.88 would be the key support level. Now we still have a gap left behind and very key resistance. Very key resistance higher. First real level I'm watching is right around yesterday's highs and the harmonic, right around 522. And then I'd be targeting, if we did get through that and we had more positive news come out, we have the gap left behind to 526.41. Other than that, same thing. If we do roll over, besides the gap fill, I'll be watching to see if we still make a more substantial bottoming pattern here. If you're looking what level has to be regained, we have to definitely regain this 520 at a minimum. 520 at a minimum and build a base above there before I could be at least considering to get short-term bullish, and that would still be, we have the rotation zone overhead. So that would be short-term plays only unless we really start building a base above there. Gap up in the Qs. Support comes in with the gap fill at 433.11. And then if we down there, remember, 426.96 on a closing basis invalidates the rest of the double on this, which did hit the first and the second targets on the Qs. The key area that this really has to regain is about 443.50 to 444 is very substantial resistance, and we do have a gap left behind to 444.10. All right. By the way, NVIDIA come down almost to the second target. Not quite there. Still, even on a bounce, we'll be watching for rollover plays in that. Tesla, by the way, you see here on the weekly going into earnings. The double is off the table. Never triggered, but now it's a triple. It is a triple bottom on the weekly, which slightly favors the continuation pattern. So that is off the table. That does not mean that does not have anything to say about the earnings. You know, Tesla can do anything with their earnings, but the key support on breakdown is 185, and then the major support area is about 140 to 149. Broadcom. Oops, sorry about that. Clicked on the wrong thing. Technically triggered the little mini double top, little bounce today. I'll still be watching for rollover plays in Broadcom. Now, you had a couple things. There are a couple great looking potential double bottoms in MMM and LMT. That is, remember, especially with this trading below the 200, it's gapping up on earnings beat. It has very key overhead resistance with the rotation zone. So this would definitely have to wait and trigger for me above 139.23, and we're only at 133. It could even run up here and still roll over, but that is a complete valid pattern on triple M. You can even see it on the weekly against very key support. So it'll be interesting to see if that triggers or not. We also have the first cross the weekly rotation zone overhead. So there's tons of resistance in the way that this would have to overcome to trigger, but it is completely a valid pattern. Lockheed Martin. This is would not trade this. Do not trade this as a double. Do not trade this. This is an extra rotation in there that's just, and if you see on the daily, do not trade that as a double. The only thing I'd be watching for is if it could get above the 50 EMA again. and build a base above there. That's the only thing I'd be watching for with that one. What else is this? I do not like the weekly at all. It's this extra rotation with this bar in here. Yeah, the gold silver ratio is completely out of whack. You see a 4-hour double top on the NAS. 4-hour double top. Did I miss this? Technically, yes. That it was not valid on the S&P. It was valid on the NASDAQ. Sorry, I forgot to point that out. Anyways, I'm still watching for rollover plays unless we make a stronger bottoming play. The S&P is not valid, by the way. I don't believe it was. No, it's not. That's why I forgot to put it on the NASDAQ, because I was watching the S&P more. Sorry about that. Thank you for that, Christoph. But this one is valid. So that's really about it. Let's just peek at the S&P. Again, we have the overhead rotation zone on a 4-hour basis. We're just bouncing back to some very key resistance areas. So this has got some heavy lifting to still do to the upside. Well, that's the uncertainty principle we live in right now, because nobody knows, again, what's going on with tariffs. What are we doing? Hard to plan your business if you don't know what's going on. So, with that, I shall talk to everyone later. Well, not later. I'll talk to everyone tomorrow. Yeah, well, it's not just depending on the economy. It's depending on what's... Because especially... All right, you have big companies. Are the tariffs? Yes, some of them are paused for a while. Are they going to come back and play? Are they going to have deals negotiated? What's going to happen? Are you going to try to lock out China completely? It's hard to run a business, especially make big planning, and you don't know what's going to happen. That's just the nature of it. You don't know what's going to happen in these uncertain times. So, you're welcome, Andrew. Do you see gold returning to the weekly rotation zone soon? I see gold returning at some point to the weekly rotation zone, and it's looking very overextended. I could see, especially if the dollar gets a bottom and gets a shift, we could see gold pull back. Do I have a topping pattern yet? No. I'm paying very close attention to this with the amount of overbought, with the way the percent Bs are stretched. I'm going to be paying attention to especially the low already formed today. But before it returns to the weekly, it's got to return to the daily, which means then you could get a bounce, and then I'd watch for the secondary reaction. Because you just got too many people from a psychological standpoint. Everything's piling in the gold. Everything. And when retail's piling in the gold now, they're generally last of the party. Because I'm talking to people, we're out. These Mag 7s stink. Gold's the thing to be in now. So everybody's running out to buy GLD, PHYS, they're running into these other things. Not many people trade the futures that I talk to, but they're running into it now. Well, there was a lot of time to get into gold before now. All right. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I shall talk to everyone tomorrow. Bye for now.